I want you to imagine something with me for just a moment. Because this story, my story, is not just about weddings, dresses, or even money. It's about love, dignity, family, and how sometimes the people who are supposed to care for you the most are the ones who can make you feel the smallest. So before I even begin, I want to ask you, please stay until the end of this story, because I promise you, the way things unfolded will shock you, inspire you, and maybe even make you question how we measure love in a family. And if you've ever felt overlooked, if you've ever been treated as though your dreams didn't matter compared to someone else's, then you will understand me in ways I can't even explain. And if you want more powerful real-life stories like this, make sure to subscribe, because this channel, Grow for Justice, is about truth, dignity, and never letting someone else decide your worth. Now, let me take you back to the day it all began. My parents had spent nearly $75,000 on my older sister's wedding, and believe me when I say that no detail was spared. It was extravagant in every sense. The towering floral arrangements that filled the air with roses and lilies, the 10-tier cake that sparkled under chandeliers like a sculpture from a dream, the designer dress flown in from Italy that cost more than the car I drove, and the hundreds of guests who arrived in black tie elegance. My sister was glowing that night, and I won't deny that she deserved happiness, but standing in that ballroom, watching my parents gush over her, I felt a strange emptiness grow in my chest. It wasn't jealousy. I wasn't angry that she had such a grand celebration. It was something else, something colder. The realization that when it came to me, things would be different. And I didn't have to wait long to see just how different they would be. Because when my engagement came, I approached my parents with all the excitement of a daughter dreaming of her own special day. I wanted something modest, nothing even close to $75,000, but something that felt like mine, something where I could walk down the aisle feeling like the most beautiful version of myself. But my parents didn't even let me finish explaining before my mother interrupted with a smile that felt rehearsed. "Oh, sweetheart, you'll be wearing your sister's old wedding dress, won't you?" At first, I thought she was joking. My sister's dress? The one fitted to her body, tailored down to the last bead, designed specifically for her shape, her height, her moment? I laughed awkwardly, waiting for my mother to correct herself. But she didn't. She went on to explain that it would be wasteful, almost irresponsible, to spend money on another dress when a perfectly good one was just hanging in the closet upstairs. My father chimed in, agreeing wholeheartedly, adding that weddings weren't about material things, they were about family. And there I stood, my heart thudding in my chest, realizing that while they had opened their wallets wide for my sister, they were already preparing to close them tight for me. And the more they explained, the more humiliated I felt. It wasn't about the money, not really. It was about what the choice symbolized. To them, I wasn't worth the effort. I wasn't worth celebrating. My fiancé, sitting beside me at the dinner table that night, squeezed my hand under the table, trying to steady me. He saw the flicker in my eyes that my parents didn't. He knew how deeply this cut, how the idea of walking down the aisle in my sister's shadow was more than just uncomfortable. It was a message that I would forever be second best. My mother kept talking about how wonderful it would be, how tradition would make the moment even more beautiful. She said, "Think of it, darling, two daughters walking into marriage in the same dress. How poetic is that?" But all I could think of was how they had poured $75,000 into my sister's dream, and now they were telling me that mine had to be recycled. That night, I lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling, torn between two voices inside my head. One told me to obey, to wear the dress, to keep peace in the family, because at the end of the day, wasn't marriage about love, not gowns? But the other voice, louder, fiercer, whispered that this wasn't about lace or silk. It was about respect, about being valued, about standing tall in the one moment that was supposed to be mine. I didn't want a 10-tier cake or an orchestra. I didn't want a designer flown in from Europe. All I wanted was the dignity of knowing that my parents believed my happiness mattered enough to give me something of my own. But dignity, it seemed, was too expensive for them when it came to me. The next morning, I woke up hoping that maybe I had overreacted, that perhaps my parents would reconsider if I just spoke to them more openly about how I felt. So, I walked into the kitchen where my mother was sipping coffee and reading the newspaper, and my father was going over some bills, and I tried to gather the courage to tell them what was in my heart. Mom, Dad. I began softly. I want to talk about the wedding. They both looked up at me as though I had interrupted something important, and that familiar wave of being an afterthought washed over me again. I don't want to wear her dress, I said finally, my voice trembling but steady enough to be clear. For a moment, silence filled the room. My mother blinked, my father set down his pen, and then came the response I dreaded. You're being ungrateful, my mother said, her tone sharp but sweet, the kind of voice she used when she wanted to scold without looking cruel. My father leaned back in his chair, shaking his head, and asked, "Do you even realize how much money we spent on your sister's wedding? Do you think we can just throw money around like that again?" And in that instant, I realized that they didn't see me as equal to her, not in importance, not in value, not even in the worthiness of having a day that belonged to me. They had never hesitated to spend tens of thousands of dollars on my sister. Yet here they were lecturing me as if I were asking for a diamond-encrusted crown. All I wanted was my own dress, something that made me feel beautiful, something that said, "This is my day." But to them, it was frivolous. My mother waved her hand as though swatting away an insect, saying, "You'll look beautiful in your sister's dress, I promise you. We can alter it to fit. Nobody will even notice." But that was exactly the point. I wanted them to notice. I wanted the world to see me, not the recycled reflection of someone else's glory. That afternoon, I called my sister, thinking maybe, just maybe, she would understand. But when she picked up and I told her about our parents' insistence, her laughter on the other end of the phone sliced through me like glass. "Oh, come on," she chuckled. "You should be honored to wear my dress. It's gorgeous, and besides, you're not really the type who cares about fashion anyway, are you? This way you get something designer without having to pay for it." My stomach churned, and I wanted to hang up the phone right there. But instead, I whispered, "It's not about the dress, it's about me." She paused, then sighed dramatically. "You always make things so difficult. Just go along with it. Honestly, no one cares what you wear. They'll all just be happy you're finally getting married." That last sentence echoed in my head like an insult, the word finally digging into me as if my engagement was some afterthought, some miracle that people barely believed would happen. I sat on my bed after that phone call, clutching the fabric of my blanket like it was the only thing holding me together. My fiancé walked in, saw my face, and immediately pulled me into his arms. "What happened?" he asked gently, and when I explained, I could see his jaw tighten. He wasn't angry at me. He was angry for me. He kissed my forehead and said, "We don't need their money. We don't need their permission. We'll do this our way." But as comforting as his words were, I couldn't shake the ache in my chest. This wasn't just about planning a wedding. It was about the years of being treated as less, as the backup daughter, the one who never shined as bright in their eyes. Growing up, my sister was always the star. She got the best tutors, the new clothes, the praise at every family gathering. I was the one told to be grateful, the one who got the leftovers, the one who was constantly reminded to be practical. As the days passed, preparations for the wedding began, but instead of excitement, I felt a shadow over every detail. Whenever my mother brought up the dress, my stomach knotted. When my father lectured about keeping things simple, I could barely breathe. It wasn't simplicity they were after, it was control. They wanted to remind me that they were in charge, that my happiness depended on their approval. And the worst part was that part of me still longed for their love, their acceptance. I wanted them to look at me the way they looked at my sister, with pride, with joy, with admiration. But instead, they looked at me as a burden, as someone who should be grateful just to have a wedding at all. I remember one evening when my fiancé and I sat on the balcony of our small apartment, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. He held my hand and said, "You know, you don't have to prove anything to them. You don't need their validation." I nodded, but tears slipped down my cheeks. "I just wanted one day," I whispered, "one day where I wasn't in her shadow. One day where they saw me for me." He squeezed my hand tighter. "Then let's make it happen. No matter what, I'll make sure you feel like the most beautiful bride in the world." His words gave me strength, but deep down, I knew the real battle wasn't about flowers or venues. It was about breaking free from the chains my parents had wrapped around my worth since childhood. And I wasn't sure if I was ready to fight them, but I also knew I couldn't stay silent any longer. As the wedding date drew closer, the tension in our house grew heavier, almost suffocating. My mother kept sending me pictures of my sister's dress after minor alterations had been done, as if that would suddenly make me accept it. Every time she texted, I felt my heart sink further. My father, on the other hand, had shifted into lectures about responsibility and not wasting money, repeating the same words over and over until they sounded like a script he had memorized years ago. It wasn't just about a dress anymore. It was about how little they believed I deserved something of my own. And when I tried to explain that to them, my mother rolled her eyes, saying, "Stop being dramatic. A wedding is about family, not about what you wear." But her words stung because when it was my sister's turn, everything had been about her. Her dress, her flowers, her perfect fairy tale day. My sister didn't make it easier either. She called one evening just to remind me how lucky I was to have her dress and how many compliments she had gotten when she wore it. "Trust me," she said smugly. "People will still remember how amazing it looked on me, and now you get to benefit from that too." That was the final straw. I hung up the phone and sat in silence, my chest burning. For years, I had accepted being in her shadow, smiling politely while everyone compared us, always falling short. But something inside me snapped that night. For the first time, I realized that this wasn't just about a wedding. It was about reclaiming the dignity and respect I should have had long ago. When my fiancé came over later, he noticed how quiet I was, and I finally told him everything, every detail of how small they made me feel. He listened, then took my hands and said softly, "Then we do it differently. Forget their money. Forget their rules. This wedding should be yours, not theirs." His voice carried a conviction I had been too afraid to embrace myself. That night, I decided I wasn't going to let anyone steal my day, not my parents, not my sister, not the weight of old wounds. If I had to fight for my happiness, then I would. The next few weeks became a whirlwind of quiet rebellion. While my parents assumed I would eventually cave in, I secretly began planning the wedding I actually wanted. I met with a local designer who understood my story and promised to help me create a dress that reflected who I truly was, not a hand-me-down version of my sister. It wasn't extravagant, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. Each fitting gave me back a piece of myself that I hadn't realized I'd lost. For the first time in years, I looked in the mirror and saw not just the other daughter, but a woman with her own identity, her own worth. Meanwhile, my parents kept pressuring me. They would drop hints at dinner, reminding me how much they had sacrificed for my sister's wedding and how inconsiderate I was being by not appreciating what they offered. My father even said once, "If you want to act ungrateful, maybe we shouldn't contribute at all." The words stung, but deep down, I realized they didn't scare me anymore. I wasn't depending on their approval or their money. My fiancé and I had decided that no matter what, we'd find a way to make it work. And slowly, that gave me a strange sense of freedom. My sister, of course, caught wind of my new dress through gossip and was furious. She called me in the middle of the night, her voice dripping with anger. "Do you even know how selfish you sound? Mom and Dad gave you a gift, and you're spitting on it. Do you have any idea how ungrateful you look?" I let her rant, but for once, I didn't feel crushed by her words. I simply said, "It's not about you, and it never was."